he knows that the Persians have suffered significant losses, and they are, and when his troops see that this army has just fought a battle, then marched all the way back, and are fully prepared to fight the Persians again, this is when the Persians lose heart and they decide that this campaign just is not worth it. Datis reverses course and sets sail back to Persia. But although the Persians have suffered losses, it's not like they haven't gained nothing, though, because they do manage to actually sail away with all of the Eretrian slaves that they took when they sacked Eretria earlier in the campaign. So they actually managed to reconstitute some of the losses, I suppose. It was not all for nothing.
Sounds better than what England tried to do with the counter armada.
Yeah. And so ends the Battle of Marathon. Probably, I think Herodotus states that this is the most glorious event in Athenian history. Of all the military victories of the Athenians, this is the one they celebrate the most, because it really was just them and the Plataeans, and they had to fight alone and do this extraordinary battle against the odds. They charged the Persian army, even though they were outnumbered. They fought, and they managed to march all the way back into the city before Datis could make landfall. And it's considered this amazing, for lack of a better word, military achievement. So it's such an achievement that even in the late 5th century, there are actually debates of whether Marathon was the bigger Athenian victory or Salamis at sea was the bigger Athenian victory. And there are sort of debates about which one was most important. To be fair, I'm more in favour of Marathon, to be honest. But
I'm interested.
the audience might have differing opinions.
I definitely do, but we'll leave that maybe after we finish
Yeah,
Salamis, so that we can maybe give a small section for
yeah,
that.
and
But I think one of the funniest, I don't know if funny is the right term, but probably interesting aspects of this battle is in the aftermath with the Spartans
yeah,
arriving finally in full combat gear, and all they just do is go through the battlefield, seeing the dead Persians, a few, few dead Athenians in comparison, and it's literally like how we just go to another city as tourists.
yeah,
The Spartans were just doing that through a corpse-strewn battlefield. And like, all right, these Athenians did a good job.
yep. The Spartans do arrive eventually, and they arrive in full kit. Uh, if I were to make a modern comparison, it's probably like, actually, you know what? It's like oh god, I was going to make a joke about Arsenal coming second in the Premier League and then rocking up late, but I don't know how to tie it in. But but the Spartans remark upon the Athenians that they did a pretty good job at Marathon.
But knowing how, they were quite terse with their words, that's pretty much the best praise they are ever going to give the Athenians.
Yeah, and it is worth bearing in mind. Like, I know we laugh about the Spartans being tourists on this battlefield, but they, up until Marathon, the Greeks had effectively been trembling in their sandals, thinking about the Persians and the Persian military because of what happened at Miletus, and then what happened in Naxos, and then Eretria. So at this point, the Persians are, even though they're more likely armored than the Greeks, so this is complete
Yeah, still the
opposite of
juggernaut.
how it started. It's complete opposite of how Aristagoras pitched them in the Ionian revolt. So the Persians are
Wait, I'm
actually
just
feared at before Marathon.
what people taking Aristagoras seriously, I think, kind of established it's not a good idea.
Yeah,
So for the Greeks, this is a enormous triumph. But for the Persians, is this not just a drop in the bucket?
yeah, because Darius is not finished yet. He he swore bloody vengeance against the Athenians. He managed to get the Eretrians. He's enslaved them and then shipped them back off into Persia. but
So
he
part of
still
his
got to
promise
fight the
is fulfilled.
Athenians. Yeah, part of his promise is fulfilled. And according to Herodotus, Darius actually made an appeal to Zeus, firing an arrow into the sky and appealing for Zeus' support in his vengeance against the Athenians. So there is almost this divine religious legitimacy aspect to it as well. But as I stated in the Ionian Revolt episode, Athens was already at war with Persia prior to the Ionian Revolt. The Ionian Revolt really just peeved the Persians even more than how annoyed they were already at the Athenians.
So it's kind of like a small annoyance that actually gave us like a proper sting. And now, so what is the reaction of the like say the Persian High Command and court on in the aftermath of marathon that does set the foundation for the
Yeah, Darius wants to go again at the Athenians. However, before he gets his second chance at revenge, he actually dies, and his son Xerxes takes the throne. And it's Xerxes who's going to try to complete the conquest of Greece and take vengeance for the temples burned at Sardis. But I suppose that's a story for another day.
Yes, it is.
definitely watch the movies, people. It'll help you visualize
Yeah,
what we want to talk about.
because in the movies, isn't it Darius is hit by like an arrow or
Yeah.
something? Like, no, but all right.
Personally fired by Themistocles himself.
Of course. As Herodotus would have said himself, yeah.
Exactly.
And
Well,
Leonidas made the God King bleed.
yeah. But I
God King
mean,
who although from Persia also has a bit of Brazilian in him by the looks of things.
and is 8 feet tall, I think, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly in the movie.
fully waxed and oiled.
Yep.
And
But
comes with giant olive fonts.
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much for giving us the Battle of Marathon. I just want to say to the audience again, if you're not checking us out on YouTube, please do. We painstakingly going through a lot of maps and even figures to show you what the hoplites and the Persian forces would have looked like in this battle. And if you'd like to further support the channel, please consider checking out the YouTube membership or the Patreon account I have over at www.patreon.com/the Pacific War Channel. By joining either, you get access to the exclusive podcast series, early access to all the content I make, and voting rights for the subjects I will tackle next. And actually, the latest podcast, it's not even history. I did a Lord of the Rings one, so it's looking at Sauron's. If you're looking at
Was
it from a military commander's point of view, what was Sauron's plan during the War of the Ring? So it's a kind of an out there episode. But again, thank you, Dan, for gracing us with your knowledge, and we'll be back for Xerxes' campaign.
Looking forward to it.
Bye, guys.